morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thank you for joining us for another edition of The Divination Table. I'm your host, Michael Lennon, and our guest tonight has been practicing various traditions of witchcraft since his late teens. He's been tarot and given spiritual consultations since the age of 19. He was born with the sight of clairvoyance, as well as being able to see shadows, and felt otherworldly presences since he could. He's a medium of the Misa Blanca tradition, as well as a Sancista and a Sancista. All from the Puerto Rican traditions, which are as beautiful and as colorful as the people, which that particular island. So let me reach out to our special guest, Sancista Brujo Luis, and bring him on. Hola, how are you? I'm so happy to hear you.
Hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can. And I know everybody else can, because I had that all fixed.
Good to hear.
No, it's good to hear you. I've been waiting to get you back on. I do apologize for the first show where we had some technical difficulties. Yeah, that was not a fun show.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be, but hey, we're here now, right?
That we are, and I'm so glad that you joined us. I met you, how many years ago now?
I would say 3 years ago.
Down in the boogie down.
Bronx, yes, in the Bronx.
and we had such a good time. I mean, we met some great, fantastic people down there upstairs from Original Botanica, and you were having your misa down there as well. So I wanted to start off the show, asking you to explain for people that may not know, what a misa is. What is it that people do during a misa?
Well, it depends because it depends on the culture, but in Puerto Rico, misas is more what they call it in the Cuban culture. In the Puerto Rican culture, we call it una velada espiritual. And a velada espiritual, what we did in the Bronx was a misa.
Right.
Okay, which was to communicate with the spirits. We didn't necessarily work the spirits for anybody else. We just brought the spirits down, and the spirits gave, talk to the people that were at la misa. In the Puerto Rican culture, we do veladas espirituales. Veladas espirituales is when we bring a spirit down to either remove black magic, to remove a curse, to help enlighten a lower level spirit and energy that is stuck. So that's what we mainly do in Puerto Rico. But a misa, like I said earlier, is that what we did in the Bronx, where we had all the público is the people who sit in the pews, and then we have the altar in front of us, and we have the mediums, and each medium brings down one of their spirit guides to communicate with the public for many reasons, whatever the public wants to ask the spirit.
And it's important that during these misas that it's run and effectively managed by mediums that are very well seasoned.
Exactly, well developed. Right. Exactly.
Because
developed and used.
I was going to say, because you don't know unless you have been fully trained, exactly what you are bringing down or what you are connecting to.
We're always taught, when we're learning to become mediums or develop mediums, that you got to be careful what you call when you call to the world of spirit, because they all listen. Do you understand? And they'll all come. And you don't want 90% of those spirits that roam the earth, you don't want them coming, because a lot of them are boisterous spirits, gluttonous spirits. Bulones would be like menacing spirits. So we want to make sure that each medium who's developed, they bring down their guides, their spirit guides that are often of a rank of elevation.
It's important that, as mediums, know what we're connecting with, that we know what our guides are, who it is that we actually work with.
Exactly.
Because it is true. I live very close to a cemetery. I always have to be careful because, those spirits still roam.
Oh, yeah.
And when they see light, just like every spirit, they go towards that light. And if they know that you're a spirit of light, and you're opening up portals, they will start coming unless you know your proper prayers, your grounding, your protections, to only ask and acknowledge those ones that you absolutely know.
That you know and that are part of your spiritual, what we call a spiritual court, or a cuadro espiritual, which is a spiritual frame. And each person is born with a spiritual frame. A lot of people know their spirit guides' names. Many people don't. And that's fine. It doesn't matter that you know their names or you do know their names. What you should acknowledge is that they are there, that they're present. A spirit guide that is of a positive light will always make you feel comfortable. It's not a spirit of your cuadro espiritual or your spiritual quadrant when it makes you feel uncomfortable. When it's an uncomfortable feeling, or you just feel that nervousness, is like something's wrong. This spirit doesn't feel right to me.
Right. And it's important that you can pick up on those nuances.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So how did you get into divination? I know it goes way back to childhood.
Yes, it goes way back to childhood. I was born when I was little, communicating with what they call the imaginary friend. And, my mother didn't think nothing of it, but then she started noticing that I was doing sign language behind my back. I'm doing it right now. I'm putting my right hand. So it was my right hand I would put behind my back. And I would write down words that the spirit was telling me. And my mother was very nervous, so she contacted my grandmother. And my grandmother was like, she interviewed my mother. Is he okay? Do you see anything normal? Is he sleeping well? And blah, blah, blah. So she told my mother, okay, after everything was fine, she goes, don't worry, he's desarrollando, he's developing his medium gifts. And since he is developing, and he comes every summer here, we will begin to train him to develop his gifts, his dones, as we call it in Puerto Rico.
You've been doing this for how many years now?
Oh my God, since I can remember. When I was very little, I was a solitary kid, and I would see spirits like I would see humans. The first time, I could speak with them and I could feel them, but the first time I started to really see them physically was when I was around 6 or 7, and I got hit by a car. And this is a long story, but I got hit by a car, and I was in an ambulance, and there I saw a spirit. And then in the hospital, I saw a spirit. To this day, I have phobias because I was always a sickly child. I bled a lot. And I was always in the hospital, and being in the hospital as a child, I would always see the spirits roaming around. I began to realize, okay, they're not the same as my mom and dad, that they're physical, that they're alive. That's when I started realizing that they were different.
Right. That's a tough thing as a child, sometimes, especially in a hospital. I still don't like hospitals.
I don't. I have a phobia for hospitals because I spent I was born very sick. I was supposed to be completely blind. I still have problems with my eyesight. And by the grace of God and my spirit guides, I'm almost 50 and I can still see. But I always I was a bleeder. I was a bleeder, and, I would always be in a hospital because once I would bleed, it wouldn't stop. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I was a reckless child, so here I am roaming the streets like a crazy Puerto Rican kid, getting hit by cars. So that's another headache. My mother would have to take me to the hospital, and it's there where I started noticing wandering spirits that would wander the corridors.
Yeah, those are the ones that are stuck, that don't know where they're going, and often died a lot of times in those same areas that they just wander.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, you are initiated into Sancista, and you're a Sancista. I always have a hard time pronouncing that word.
Okay, so yes, I was baptized and I received my puntos en Sanse in the 21 divisions. In Venezuela, when I went to Venezuela, I went with a Banco Mario Roncero. He brought me to Venezuela, and there the spirits took me in when we did the trek to La Montaña del Sorte. So all my life, everything that has to do with spiritism, espiritismo, or spiritualism has always attracted me. I'm always very interested in the various cultures of how people interact with their guides. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm the same way. I mean, I'm all over the place wanting to learn, and part of my show, I love divination, so it's like all forms, everything I got to look at, everything I can learn, everything I can peek into, all those things that I'm actually allowed to, because there are certain things you have to be initiated into.
Right.
So, I can't throw, chamalungos or do divination according to palo or other traditions, or use an ifa mat because I'm not initiated and I don't know and have those connections.
Exactly. Well, most of my divination is through tarot, unless a client wants. A lot of times I could be sitting with a person right now in front of me. I have a glass of water, I have a candle, I have my composition notebook, and a number 2 pencil. And a lot of the times when we're little, we're taught, I remember when I was little, one of my grandmother's friends, she had a fuente. A fuente was a glass of water. And she said, "What do you see in that water? What do you see in that water?" And I was little. I didn't see nothing. I just saw water, you know what I'm saying? But she was testing. She was testing to see how much of a clarividencia I had. But that's one of the main forms that I use daily, just talking to people, because a lot of people call me, and if they want a reading, then okay, we set up an appointment and I give a reading. But when I'm talking to people or giving advice to a friend or family member, I'm listening to my guides. I'm listening to my guides, and I'm asking my guides, what's the best advice I can give this person? And like I said, that's one of the forms of divinations that I use the most.
I always had an issue with the water.
Yeah. We were taught that from little, because in Espiritismo, water is one of the main focus of the altars, and then of course the candle next to it, and then that's what we were taught. But yeah, I remember when I was little, she made me look in that. Her name was Doña Consuelo, and she's like, "What do you see in the fuente of water?" And I'm like, "I just see water." You know what I'm saying? But now that I was older, when I started developing more, I understood what she was trying to teach me, to see how developed I was at that stage. I was young. I was 6, 7 years old. But at that stage, if I could read, because often a child who's part of a family of espiritistas, that's the first thing they ask you to see. What do you see in that water? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they always have to test you.
I'm sorry?
I said they always have to test you and see when you're ready to really start taking the next steps.
Right.
I mean, I find all of this fascinating. I mean, I love to delve in and learn everything, and now I know you do more than just tarot, but I know it's your primary. And
right.
What particular decks do you use primarily?
I primarily use the Rider-Waite. I've been just since the moment I picked it up when I was 18 years old. That's the oracle that I like, the decks that I like. Or a tarot writer clone. And I use La Baraja Española for more the older people who are more intimidated with the tarot. You know what I'm saying? They're like intimidated with the tarot. Yeah. So then when a Puerto Rican lady comes to my house, and I ask them, do you want el tarot or do you want La Baraja? And they often say La Baraja. And so then I just cast La Baraja for them. I do palmistry. Not as much as I used to, because my eyesight is getting worse. I read the egg. I read el tabaco smoke, and stuff like that.
So, as a developing spiritual person, a person wanting to get into divination, what do you think is one of the most important things that pretty much every diviner really should have as they begin their journey?
A pencil, and a notebook. And I always tell people, one of the first things that, like I said, with the water, you will notice in misas and sesiones, we always have people with notebooks and pencils. And when I have a misa espiritual, everyone needs to participate. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. And oftentimes I place a notebook and pencils in front of everybody, and I say, whatever you feel, you write it. I don't care if it makes no sense to you. You don't question where it's coming from. Write down what you're getting. I had a sesión, a misa, a sesión is a seance. I had a seance a month ago, and there was 5 people around the table. And I told them, listen, we got notebooks. If you get messages, if you feel anything, please write it down. It might not make sense to you at that moment. At the end of the misa, we will give everyone time to read what they wrote, and if they feel the messages for anybody around the table. There was this young gentleman who was on the table, and this was the first time he's Puerto Rican. It was the first time he did it. And he literally, before the session started, he literally wrote down, he drew a picture of a spirit walking with a cane. This is a 16-year-old Puerto Rican kid who had never been to a session. He drew a person with a cane. I didn't see that. He was across the way from me. But during the session, one of my spirit guides came down, and that spirit guide needs to walk with a cane. So he had already drew this before the spirit even came down.
So I was definitely connected.
I'm sorry?
I said he is definitely connected spiritually.
Exactly. So I always tell people, start with even on the phone. On the phone, I like to, right now I'm doodling and doing stars and number 8s. And sometimes words just come out of my hand and I just write them. And usually when I hang up with a person, I look at the words, see what I wrote. Maybe there's a message that I need to give to this person. So I always tell people, start that way.
You're doing automatic writing.
Yes, we call that la clave espiritual.
What are you picking up from me? No.
Right now I'm just getting 8. Well, I can tell you what I'm picking up, but a lot of it's going to be private, so I'll tell you after we hang up.
As a person that does divination, I mean, you do divination for specific things. I mean, you don't do just regular tarot readings most of the time. I mean, because you have a very large clientele, from a Puerto Rican background.
Right.
So a lot of yours are more spiritual, what people need to know in reference to certain blocks, if they need cleansings, things of that nature.
Most of my clients don't care if they're going to win. Well, I'm sure I do have clients that care about that. But most of the clients that sit down on my table is because they have a spiritual problem, they have a spiritual blockage, and they need me through the cards. Or sometimes I don't even need to throw the cards. I just start doodling and I give them a recipe. This is what you need to do. This is maybe you can light a candle to this saint and we can or you can cleanse with this and you can purify with that. That's the way we do it. It's fixing problems. So divination in the Latino culture is a little bit different from, I noticed, divination in the United States, because divination in the United States is more like fortune telling, like, oh, you're going to meet Mr. So-and-so and blah, blah, blah. While divination in the Latino culture, you have this problem. This is why you have this problem. This is how you can fix that problem.
And I'm glad you bring that up because, in a lot of my shows, I always touch base on, there being a difference between being a reader and being a diviner.
Right.
Being a fortune teller is being different than being a diviner, because often it's not just, oh, am I going to get the job? Oh, how come? Is this person going to come and call me tonight? Are they the love of my life? Things of that nature. As a diviner, we look at the how, the why, what's causing, how can we get over or past or through this particular block, and what's holding these people back.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that a lot of divination has to do with that. When a client comes to me, they usually have a problem. I try to find the root of the problem. Why is that problem there? Okay, the problem is there for this reason. This is what you can do to fix this problem. Do you see what I'm saying? But don't get me wrong, I do get people who wonder, is this the love of my life? And if my cards say no, I'm going to say, no, it's not. The devil card and the ten. The devil to me is the devil. Period. Point blank in the story. I don't make it I don't make it something pretty. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Because they're paying me $30 a half hour. So if the devil card comes up and the ten of swords comes up and the nine of swords comes up, that's a warning, and I need to give that person the warning. Okay, this is the warning. But remember, it's not etched in stone. It's letting you know what you need to see and how to fix it.
Yeah, and that's a big thing with, being a diviner. It's that step that people need to have. I mean, I can throw cards all day long and say, yes, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. No, this is not. But it doesn't touch what they need to know about, hey, how can I get to this? Why am I not getting there? And that is what I feel is the most important thing. And often, I'm sure that you'll agree that during a reading or a session, what the client's coming for has nothing to do with whatever message Spirit's bringing to them.
No, pretty much no. Or sometimes it's a message that they don't want to hear, but they know it comes down, months pass, and they're like, thankfully you told me you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. You told me what I needed to hear.
Exactly. And that's the big difference is, they get what Spirit deems as the most important, information that they need to know at that particular time.
Exactly.
Hey, my friend Erica Robinson joined our chat group, and I just wanted to bring this up because Erica I've known for many years, from a lot of different groups. I've watched her develop her reading skills as a Lenormand reader. She just started as one of the co-hosts on a podcast called Third Eye Unplugged, and that's 3RD I Unplugged.com, where they also discuss, things of a psychic insights, the occasional dose of uncommon sense, metaphysics, a lot of different topics. So you can always go and check her out there. I love Erica. I've known her for years. So I had to just throw a little plug in for her show because that's literally just coming out. Just let me know about it yesterday. And
nice.
Did you know our friend Emmy also just launched her own Tarot by Emmy tarot courses?
Nice. Yes, I've heard about that. My godson was actually talking to me earlier about that because his wife and Emily are really close friends. And so Emily has been tutoring or teaching his wife. So I'm excited for that for Emily. Emily rocks. I love Emily.
I love Emily. And if you're interested in learning, anybody that's out there that's interested in learning how to read tarot cards from a absolutely beautiful, wonderful, down-to-earth, very spiritually connected and gifted reader, check out tarotbyemily.com. That's tarotbyemily.com. You can't go wrong with Emily. Absolutely love that woman.
Well, that's another thing that I want to say because you were telling me earlier, we dabble when we're younger, but you need to find your foundation. What is your strength?
Yes.
I've dabbled in many things and some things worked for me, some things didn't work for me. Espiritismo is my foundation, is my rock. It is who I am, what I'll always be. I don't care if I become Hindu or whatever. Espiritismo is my foundation. But I was telling Emily once, I don't remember the conversation we had, but I said, Emily, your strength is tarot. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can throw bones, you can try to learn tobacco, but tarot is your foundation. That's the way you do your messages, and you have a beautiful gift. And so I like to tell people they need to find that foundation. What is your foundation? It's okay to learn this, it's okay to learn palmistry, but what is the most important thing is that you're giving the message to the client, do you see? And that you get strong in that form of divination, in that form of oracle.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I go all over, because I love everything about divination. But my base of everything, very much like yourself, even though I'm an initiated Hungan in Haitian Vodou, I've got Ilekis and I've been initiated into Santeria. My go-to has always been Espiritismo. It's always been working with my ancestors, my guides, my white table. Even when I was doing, spiritual work,
Right,
I
of
did a
course,
lot
you know.
with my own ancestors. They did a lot of work, and those are the ones that come first before everything else.
Right, right.
So I completely understand that. And I think that as diviners, I think people also need to have a solid foundation and a solid base
Exactly.
with their guides
I,
and their ancestors.
well, one thing about me, and I don't know if this has to do with divination, is that whatever I've learned in my life, it's part of who I am. I notice in today's cultures, you learn something that's like, let's say you were Christian 20 years ago, and you learn their laws or whatever they call it in the religion, and then you say, okay, Christian religion is not for me no more. I want to be Hindu. I want nothing to do with Christianity. Now I'm Hindu. Nah, I'm different. I like to keep that Christian element of me, my Brujo side of element to me. Everything that I learned it makes me the man that I am today. All those mythologies, all those lores from every religion, it just makes me the person that I am. And when I consult and divine for people, not all my clients are Latino. I do have people from India, so I need to know a little bit of a background of their spirits. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Not all my clients are Africans or Asians, so you have to have a good understanding of that person's religion, that person's what they can or cannot do in order to help them. And that's one thing when it comes to divination that I think people should learn. If you don't want to be the religion, that's fine, but learn the mythologies and the customs of these religions because it will help you help clients better.
I will agree with that. I mean, I've been, Christian, Catholic. I've been baptized in Baptist churches, Vodou, Santeria. I've studied shamanism. And all of these, I'll call them life lessons,
Right, they are life lessons.
upon, So I can look at something and know that somebody is more Native American. And
Exactly.
I know I can draw upon more information and things that they can understand, as well as things that may not go against their own tradition. Not everybody can cleanse themselves, say, with a bird. Not everybody
Exactly.
can, use certain plants or eat certain foods So just as there are countless numbers of different types of people, you draw upon everything in all of your experiences, through your mediumship and your readings, to divine and to help everybody.
Exactly.
And if you can't, refer them to somebody that can.
Exactly. So Terry is Japanese. So if I don't understand, if I'm consulting a client who has a cuadro that's very Asian, I don't know too much about the Asian spirits or the Asian gods. So I tend to bring Terry along. Okay, Terry will explain that because I don't know that much of the Asian spirits. Like what you said, if I don't know, then I try to find a person who will help or guide them. Not everybody, I'm going to throw this spirit out there. I can't have a Catholic person over here in front of my table and then I'm going to say, oh, you need to light a candle to Ganesh. And they're like, who the heck is Ganesh? Right. There's no faith, there's no connection. It's not going to work for that person.
Right. And it has to be based on their faith. In
Exactly.
hypnosis, we do the same thing in hypnosis. When we are working with a client to try and help them to relax, to get into that state of hypnosis, we are working with that person's belief system.
Exactly.
To help augment and bring them down into whatever particular state. So it's important that we understand that everybody has that different faith-based plane that they work with, and their belief system plays a huge amount and a big role in anything that they're going to do.
Exactly. And that's one thing about Espiritismo as growing up that has always attracted me because in an Espiritismo culture, Espiritismo is not a religion, and Espiritismo exists in all parts of the world, called by a different name. But every culture has its mediums. Every culture has its form of communicating with the ancestors, with the spirit guides, and there's Cuadros are, some people might have spirits that are Native American, some people might have spirits that are African, some people might have spirits that are Celtic. I have a Celtic spirit guide. So in order to understand that spirit, I need to understand their religion, their culture, their music, their food. Do you understand what I'm saying? In order for me to connect with that spirit much better.
It's like, developing a new friendship with somebody. You can't really develop a friendship if you know nothing about them. Nothing about who they are, where they come from, what they like, they don't like. Without that, you have no connection. You just have basically an acquaintance that pops in from time to time.
Right.
So I do think it's all important for, all diviners to be able to, take the time and study.
And study and learn about their clients. What are their clients? What do they believe in? And you don't have to believe in what they believe in, but have some knowledge of what they believe in order to help them, because this is not about you. It's about you helping that client. Most of my clients need help. So it's whether I believe in their religion, whether I believe in Lucifer or not, you know what I'm saying? I have to respect the client. Okay, that client believes in Lucifer. Let me find a way to help that person with that entity or that energy.
Right. And, it's not always beautiful, pleasant. These people come a lot of times with real outright problems. Mm-hmm. And, you can't sugarcoat things. I mean, yes, you can choose the words that you use, to give them the information, but you still have to give them the actual info. You can't just, color coded, it's all rainbows and unicorns, because life's not. It's messy a lot of times.
Right. I wish it was that easy for me. A lot of my clients have complex problems, and I come out drained at the end of the day because it's so much. It is a lot. But when they sit there, they paid me whatever they paid me. I give them 100%, and I make sure that if I can't help them, I lead them to a place where they can find some form of help.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. So what else do you use divination for?
Divination. Well, first of all, I don't know if you could omens. I was talking to my godson today. I'm an omen fanatic. If a crow follows me, that's a message. You know what I'm saying? If the clouds are in a weird shape and I pay attention in it, and so I use divination in a lot of things. Just basically like right now, I'm talking to you. I always did that doodling. It was a form of automatic writing. Yeah. It's just getting messages. Maybe we're just talking right now, but maybe there's a message that you need to know. So I always doodle, and it's just part of who I am.
Well, speaking of omens and signs, last week I ran to the grocery store, and on my way home, I took a turn that I don't normally take, and it was a last minute decision to take that turn. And I drive not even a block, almost get to the stop sign, and out right in front of me, and this is the first time I've ever seen this in my area in Troy, because, there's a lot of houses, not a whole lot of trees. There's a woodpecker. Car window height, pecking on a tree. I slowed down, and I had my window rolled down, and I looked out, and literally it stopped pecking, turned and looked at me, looked back at the tree, and started pecking again.
Right. And see, that's omens. I had a godson. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I've never seen a woodpecker. So I had to look up, what woodpeckers were, and spiritually, at least on the Native American side, a lot of times it represents, opportunities knocking.
Right.
Or it could literally be me banging my head up against a wall. But I like to take it the other way, that, opportunity is coming. It's right there. It's not very far off.
Well, I had a godson a couple months earlier, and he said, Padrino, I'm sitting outside having, I'm sitting in my kitchen, and in the window, I'm having my coffee. In the window, I see a crow, and it's standing by, and then all of a sudden the crow flies away, and this is during the day, And Padrino, I swear to God, not a couple seconds later, an owl flew on the same branch. And I told my godson, that is a sign that you got to be careful, because something is going to come to you that's going to bring you problems, because you know that owls and crows are enemies. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So be careful with someone who's going to bring you problems. The week passed, and as that omen happened for him, he got, a clue of something that could have brought him problems from an old friend. And I said, remember that owl and that crow. That omen was a form of divination telling you something is coming your way. Pay attention.
See, I tend to not pay attention to signs and omens. I only did this time because, like I said, I had never seen a woodpecker in my life.
Right.
I've heard them, but never saw one. For it to be right where it was at that time, and for me to make that last-minute decision to take a turn I don't take.
Exactly.
That, for me, is definitely a sign, because, like I said, I don't normally take that turn. I'm the straight guy, I go to the very last turn before my house, and then I take my turn.
Right.
This time I went 2 blocks, took a turn, and then went the other 10 or 12 blocks that I normally go. But it was meant for me to see. It
was meant for you to see. Most omens and signs are meant for us to see. We just ignore it. These things that our ancient ancestors really focused and paid attention to. Today we're taught to block it. You're going to go, block it. But it was meant for you to see. And most signs and omens are meant for us to see.
And that's also a form of divination, because, signs and omens are also, put there by spirit.
It's for telling you a message that you need to pay attention, that something's coming your way, or you see what I'm saying? So it is a form of divination.
And it's just a matter of, sometimes what I like to tell people is getting out of your own way so that you can take a good look at everything that's actually going around. Stop and smell the roses. Take a break.
Right.
Look at life the way that it is and see the beauty that God and Spirit has put here on earth, so that you can accept whatever messages come through. Far too often we get stuck in our own minds with work and family and issues and friends and drama, that we can't effectively give somebody a good spiritual message unless you know how to pull yourself out of your own mind.
Right.
And one of the ways to do that is to have a very good, solid foundation with your guides and your ancestors.
Yeah, I noticed that Facebook is one thing that is just so much drama. I don't pay attention to that. I'm so busy dealing with my clients' issues and trying to find them problems. And a lot of people are getting into all these fights. Put that aside. Focus on yourself, developing your gifts, developing your talents. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, we're focused so much on all these dramas and all that. At the end of the day, 99% of what we're drowning on is just it's like a cup of water. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that's going to come to fruition. So focus on stuff that that really matters in your life.
Well, that you can drown on like 2 tablespoons of water.
I'm sure someone can.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And sometimes, we let trivial little things, interfere.
Exactly.
So I know that you've written a book, and I know that there's another one coming.
I'm hoping. It's just that after that book, I just became it's incredible the doors and the opportunities that book has presented to me. Become so busy, it's so hard because during downtime I don't want to look at nothing that has to do with writing. You know what I'm saying? I just want to watch a movie and not focus on nothing. When I wrote that book, Actually, you're the one who got me first on. You're like, you need to go on radio and you should get a book out there. You're the one who was one of the first people who was telling me that.
Yes,
but
blame me.
Yeah, but that opened up a lot of blessings, and it's so hard for me to, being a father, being a partner, having clients, and trying to have some form of social life. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to balance everything out.
Yeah, but way back then, when I was speaking to you before, on the other show, and we were discussing things, and I was telling you that, look, this is what I see, and this is what you really need to do.
It came out to rotation. You were giving me a reading right there, right then.
But there was a reason for that. Spirit
Exactly.
had bigger things in mind for you than you had thought and anticipated for yourself.
Exactly.
And I've loved watching, even though I disappeared from Facebook for a while, I love watching from where you were and where you've come now and how big everything has blossomed and flourished for you.
Right.
It's one of those things that, I'm grateful for any message that I can pass along to every person.
Exactly. That's what makes us, that's the reason why we do what we do. To give a message to a person, to help them, to alleviate maybe a stress, a problem. It really does feel good, to somehow be a part of helping a person.
I think for me, the greatest thing is watching somebody develop.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing the changes and the growth that somebody has. And it's not even about, I helped. It's just seeing the actual changes and
exactly
watching people connect with their spirits, open up, get rid of blocks, or even sometimes, take a look in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I really can do this. What is it that I'm not seeing that all these other people can see?
Right.
And it does have a habit of changing somebody's mindset. Move them in different directions.
Well, that's what I tell people. Stop dreaming and do it. One thing I do in my life is I'm a dreamer. I'm a big dreamer, and I'm a big doer. If I dream something, I'll do it. And if it doesn't work, I can look back and say, okay, I did it. I tried it. It didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Move on to the next thing. I don't like to think, oh, what if? I like to think and do.
I'm a big dreamer too. Unfortunately, I don't always do what I dream.
Right.
Of course, I don't always have the time. But I just recently started teaching. Mm-hmm. My friend Karen from Australia of Tea with Karen just launched her tea card divination courses, in which I am co-teaching her courses with her. So people are interested in learning about tea card divination, which stems from tea leaf readings, then you can go to teawithkaren.com. That's Karin, because she spells it a little bit differently, and you can look up some of the information on her tea card courses. It's all based on symbolic divination. Mm. I'm going to take a short little break. I'm going to play a quick song, and we'll be back in just a couple moments with some more talk. If you can bear with us.
Para celebrar tu día
And we are back with our special guest, Sancista Brujo Luis. I want to take a moment to say thank you to some of our guests that joined us in our chat room. William Burnham, R.K. Gomes, Erica Robinson, as well as Adriana Roman, for taking the time out to come and join us here. R.K. says, hey, Sancista, what a great show. I'm having a great time.
Thank you.
So let's get back to some divination. I know that you read the tarot a lot, and I know it is the Rider-Waite because, that's one of the classic decks. I think it's one of the easiest decks for people to start with.
Exactly.
I have issues. Well, you probably know I have issues with a lot of different things, but when it comes to cards, I have to find the right deck that isn't too over the top. Start with something easy. Don't go with something that, like the Thoth deck. I mean, it's a beautiful deck. But unless you have the foundation from the beginning, there's too much into it. What are some of your tips that you would give somebody that's just starting out in divination, aside from, a notebook and a pen, to really learn?
One thing is practice with your family members. That's the way when I started, when I was 18 years old, I was reading for everybody. Anybody that wanted a free reading, I was reading everybody. And my godson's wife, the same thing. I'm like, just read for your family. The more people come to you and like, oh my God, what you said to me, it came true. It gives you confidence in yourself. 99%, and I'm still read today. One thing I need to tell everybody, I've been doing this for 30 something years. One thing is that before a reading, I get that doubt inside me, like, oh my God, am I going to give this person a good reading? Or am I going to be horrible at it? But as soon as I go on that phone or that person is sitting in front of me, I give them 100%. And I just don't doubt myself. I go with it and I just keep going until it's over. And don't doubt yourself is what I tell people. Don't doubt yourself and practice. Practice with friends, practice with family members, anyone who wants a free reading, practice.
Take them with you, carry them, take them to work. Take them to lunch, sit down in the coffee house,
Exactly.
Have a random conversation with somebody as you're actually just throwing cards.
Right.
But yeah, you have to trust in yourself, and you have to understand the meanings, from a base level.
Right.
And it could only be one or two key words for each card. You have to memorize the entire
Yes,
thing.
a key word opens up. It opens up the universe for more. And that's what I tell people. Learn one key word from each card, and don't vomit what a book says. Don't open, if you're vomiting what a book says, it's okay. But learn that one key word, and from that one key word, just go from there and listen to your intuition.
Right, because intuition is your connection.
Exactly,
with your spirits. It's how your spirits communicate with you, and translate the information coming. It's like giving your friend, hey, we've got a secret decoder message. Here's the key. You give them the key, and they translate, and they give you the information.
You have to decode the message, exactly.
So I'm not saying anything bad about book meanings, because you do have to start with learning the basic definitions. Exactly,
and that's how I learned. But what's so funny, that reading the tarot 30 years later, I went back to an old book, I think one of those, those little books and I'm like, oh my God, my interpretation for the card is totally different from what that book says, but it works for me. Does that make sense to you?
Well,
and yes. I give the person the message that what it is,
Right. Well, because, everybody has their own style and technique.
Exactly.
I tell people, even my own students, look, you will never read like I read, and I don't want you to. I want you to read like you read. You know, you have your own personality, you have your own gifts, your own life experiences to draw upon. I may or may not have many more years of those same experiences, but those are my keywords, you know, that help translate things. So, you know, I look at different cards from different systems, and I have people tell me that, well, you can't read this intuitively. Well, I kind of beg to differ because I do. You know,
exactly.
And that's what works for me. You know, it may not be a textbook.
Yeah, it's worked for, I'm not, what works for somebody might not work for somebody else. What works for one culture might not work for another culture. And the way I read, I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but like I said, I give them 100%. And they come back. I don't promote myself. It's very rare that you see me promote myself. You know what I'm saying? Because the way I promote myself is giving a client the best reading they can get from me, and they come back and they promote me.
Right. They give the word of mouth, because there's nothing better in a diviner's bag. You know, I don't want to call it bag of tricks because it's not. It's, you are getting people coming back because they see the value in everything that you do. They see the expertise, they see the knowledge, they see the compassion, which is something you have to have. You have to have compassion with a lot of the people that you are going to read for. Put yourselves in their situation to say...
Put yourself in their situation.
Because these people, a lot of times, you know, they need... And we can't all, you know, just do a reading and say, this is what I see. Thank you very much.
Well, one thing I noticed that a lot of people say is that I'm very humble, that I'm very approachable, that when they're very nervous to come get readings for me, and when I read for them, I treat everyone like I treat a friend, like a long friend. You know what I'm saying? I'm no better than anybody, and I like to make people feel comfortable. It's so important for me that I was taught that you treat people like that. You treat people that you guys are equal, you know, because at the end of the day, we are equal, and that they should feel comfortable when they come to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important thing. You know, when I first met you, you know, well, I mean, I talked to you a lot prior to physically meeting you in person. And, you know, oftentimes, you know, you talk to somebody online and they're this particular way. And then you meet them in person and they're like a totally different person. But when I met you, it was what you see is what you get. It was the same person that I had talked to. It was like meeting an old friend.
One thing about me, I love people. I love people. I love meeting people. When people come up to me in places that it surprises me that wherever I go, people come up to me, and you can ask anybody. I'm so happy to meet you. How are you? And let's talk. And I've embraced people. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just the way I am. You know, I love to meet people.
And you know, I loved meeting you. I mean, you were so down to earth, and I looked at it, I was just like, you know, here's a person that walks the walk, talks the talk. They're the same, whether it's online or in person. They're very humble. They're very down to earth. They're so full of the love of the spirits that they work with and what it is that they do, that you can't help, like I did, you just can't help falling in love with a guy because, you know, he's just one of those, I'll call it infectious people in a good way.
Well, that's the thing. That's the part of my tactic of when a person comes to me, they need to be healed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes they need to be healed. So in order for them to be healed, they need to know that they have a friend in me. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to criticize them. I'm not going to treat them any less than who I am. I'm no better than you. I've been through the same situation. 99% of the clients that I have, I've been through the same exact experiences. I will sit there and say, honey, I can talk to you because I've been through that. And here I am today. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I speak to experiences. all the experiences, whether good or bad, have made me the man that I am today. I would not change a thing about them because they've made me strong. They make me help clients. I've been through it all, and it's kept me humble. It's kept me grounded, and that's when people come to me. I need to make sure that that's something I give them.
I have to bring this book thing back up again because I keep getting poked. Right. Maybe it's my own spirits that are doing it. I'm waiting for that book on the La Baraja in English.
I've been writing that for years and years and years, and then I started writing another book, and I got this writing on that and this and that. But that's there. I know it's going to come when it's going to come. I try to place an hour to it a week. Yeah, I try. I really do try.
I know you do.
But I know when it's time for it to come. And like when you first met me, I was a blogger. I can't visualize how the heck did I blog. You know what I'm saying? I used to blog every week. I can't fathom how that man at 30-something blogged, because today I just can't do it.
Well, but you do video blogs now.
Exactly. Now downtime, I do a little YouTube. Yeah.
So I think you've progressed into the modern era of technology to embrace the more visual aspect. Bring in the, hey, here I am. This is what I look like. This is what I do. This is how I sound. This is how I come across in everyday real life. And I actually kind of think the video blogs are even better than a regular blog.
I enjoy them.
Connection.
But I enjoy them. But what we were saying about the La Baraja or the book, I always wanted 3 books. That's my goal in my life. I want to produce 3 books in my life. Since I was young, I always wanted to write 3 books. That's a lucky number for me, and I know I'm going to get those done. I promise you guys that. But I'm always doing so many things. But that will come. That will come.
Okay, because I've been waiting.
I know.
So you have some things that you are going to be doing as well. You have some events you're going to.
Well, let's see. I just came from Pagan. I call it Pagan Icon. I know I'm saying it wrong. That was in, I don't even know where I was. Minneapolis, Minnesota, something like that. I know I'm heading to New York this summer. I think I'm going to Puerto Rico. There's a spiritual thing in Puerto Rico. And I was invited for 2018 to be part of a New Orleans event. I still haven't confirmed it, but I'm still, thinking about that.
Keep your bags packed, because I think you're going to be doing a little bit more traveling next year, too.
Yes.
And I'm really happy to see that, because, that's one of the things that I've always seen is, you doing more traveling, you getting out more publicly.
Right.
You teaching class.
Mm-hmm.
And not just on, spiritism, but, like divination, developing your mediumship, things
exactly.
of that nature. I keep seeing classes popping up in my head, and next year is going to be a bigger year than this one.
Well, I always tell people, I know this is so hard, because the greatest class for developing, desarrollando espiritualmente, spiritism, is being part of a templo or a centro. And that's easier said than done. You know what I'm saying? Right. A lot of people just can't find those templos or centros. Or, if you're part of a Santeria community or voodoo, a lot of people, they do interact with the spirits in their own culture. Find these people. They're out there, and learn how they develop their gifts. And, because in the Latino culture, we teach, there's no recipe book on how to learn. Puerto Ricans don't say that you add a cup of this and you add a teaspoon. No. You do what I do. You follow what I do. You know what I'm saying? That's how we teach.
But a lot of people don't realize and understand in a lot of these traditions, it's not written down.
No,
you learn by sitting, by watching, by keeping silent, by being instructed, by being pointed at. or as my godmother used to do, she wouldn't use her fingers to point. She'd use her lips.
Right.
You know, and it looked like she was blowing kisses, but she's really sitting there, pushed her lips out, pointing in a certain direction, going, "Hey, I need that." You know.
Well, I have this godson. He's from Puerto Rico. He's a flight attendant, and he's always, Padrino, I don't feel like I'm developing. Padrino, I don't feel like I'm developing. I'm not growing spiritually. I just don't feel it. And it's so funny. He came to one of my misas, and in one of my misas, I had a few of my clients that had read the tarot for, and so I knew their situation. Blah blah blah. So all of a sudden, here goes my godson. He starts giving evidencia. I see this, I see that, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the night, I was like, Brian, what you just did, I had to read cards for, and you're developing. You have to have faith in your spirits. But he was learning by participating in the centro, in the misas, and the sesiones.
Right. And what they don't realize, and I've run into this, being in different traditions, everybody wants or expects you to hand them a book. So here's all the information you need to know.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I want to say is that you ever see Karate Kid when he was teaching karate, wash on, wash off? That's how we teach. You know what I'm saying? And you think you're not learning, but you're actually learning something. That wax on, wax off thing.
We teach and they teach in ways that you may not understand or comprehend. But there's a reason and a method behind it. Because it gets you out of your head. It gets you so you're not thinking about rules and formulas and anything else. It's just sitting there saying, "Fight your mind. Just let things happen. Here's what we push you to," and we just allow it to naturally develop because you can't rush it. No matter how hard you try, if you want to be a medium, if you want to call on spirit, have spirit come down to pass messages, you can't fight to make it happen. You have to develop.
You can't. And a lot of people think that this is a glorious job. Being a medium is one of the most exhausting things. Sometimes I wish I lived in a picket fence with a nice house and be a normal person. Working the spirits, it's tiresome. It's not as glamorous as you think. It's a lot of work. It's physical work on the body. Divination in itself, taking clients all day long. At the end of the, I literally have to take 5 baths a day in between clients. Because I'm always absorbing. And I have no one to. You're listening to all these people's whatever their problem, or you do take that into yourself. You really do take that into yourself. So I'm constantly cleansing. I'm constantly bathing. I spend so much money on Epsom salt. You know what I'm saying? It's not as glamorous as a lot of people think.
No, and it's not financially, rewarding. You're never going to have $1 million house. You're never going to have the best car on the block. But you will have a lot of things that those people don't. If you do find a spiritual person who doesn't have all that, then that person's a charlatan. It's one of those people like those religious groups on TV that they're rich and their whole congregation is poor. It's a charlatan. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Because that's just the way I view it.
Well, I understand. There have been a lot of times where even when I worked in the Botanica, if somebody came in and they really, really needed to be cleansed, even if they had no money, my spirits were like, "Hey, this person really needs to be cleansed." If that's what they're telling me. Out of my pocket it comes. For whatever we have to buy. Good thing that you just said that, because in the templos, in the centros, most of the people who come, they don't have money, so they come to the templos, they come to the centro, and everybody in that building at that moment either gets cleansed, gets purified, gets a message. Do you see what I'm saying? Get something. No one leaves that building without receiving something, whether it's a cleansing, removing a spirit, a bath, or something. And a lot of it, we do it out of caridad, which is charity. And a bat like a church, a basket is given for donations if you can afford a donation, for the temple, for the candles and all that. A lot of people think that we make, where I make my money is in my tarot, you know what I'm saying? But in my spiritismo, I'm not going nowhere with that. It is what it is, So RK in our chat group wants to know what our I think he's saying, what is our view of having long distance students?
It's hard. It's really hard because it's like having a long distant parent that you never met. And you only have your parent. You need your mother, you need your father from the moment you're born to you're 16, 17 years old. You need to have that interaction with because a student, I don't call them students. I call them my ahijados, my godchildren. They're family. And it's so important for me to interact with them on a daily basis. They get to know who I am, how I am, not always spiritually, but just as a human being, when my spiritual cape is off. So it's important that you have, in Puerto Rico and in the Latino countries, every town had their brujos and their little espiritista that everyone went to, and every family member had that brujo or bruja or espiritista. Students far away, it's hard because you just never have that connection with the godparent. And sooner or later, I've seen it 99% of the time, the relationship starts waning.
I'll agree. My personal views on long distance students or god kids is very simple. Find somebody close to home. Find somebody that you trust and that you can get along with, that you can get to know. If they are at a distance, budget money to be able to see them on a regular basis.
Exactly. My godson lives in New York, and he came twice a year. And yes, we do something spiritual, but most of the time we're just hanging out. We're just, doing shopping, going out to eat, and then we do our spiritual things. But he gets to know me as a person. Being a godparent, being a spiritual teacher, you become like how do I say it? Like a parental figure, and that interaction, that physical interaction, is so important.
Yeah, and if your godparents or your mentor or your teacher is a distance, budget money to see them. You owe it to yourself. Be around them, because they can't teach everything that you're going to need to know without you physically being there.
Exactly.
Because we can give you words, but if we're not putting you through the work, if they're not having you work at a spiritual table or joining in the misa, you're missing out on the most important parts of the development. So find somebody that's a bit closer to home that you're going to be able to get along with, that you like, that has a good reputation. Do your homework, research that particular person, and then go for a reading. Sit and talk to them. Get to know them. Let it develop like a friendship, like you would any other person that you're bringing into your life. Because not like when we are first born, where we don't consciously have a choice of who our parents are. In the spiritual world, we have a conscious choice to make as to who we are going to have as our godparents. So it's important. It's like adopting a child, but we're adopting parents.
Right.
So how do our lovely listeners get a hold of you if they should want a reading, or if they need to schedule to come and see you for, consultations or cleansings or spiritual work?
So I have my YouTube channel, and lately, because a lot of people are like, you don't know how hard it is to find you. So lately on my YouTube channels, I put an email link where they can email me, and then we take it from there. And I also have my Facebook, but I'm more, I'm just being careful who I accept in Facebook. So usually, mostly on my YouTube, I don't have a webpage. I am technically, a lot of people are like, you need a webpage out there, and I'm like, I have no time. I wouldn't even know how to create that. But definitely through my YouTube channel.
I always have such a, you said you're going to be in the city
I'm
later
thinking
this
about
year.
going to New York. Yeah.
When about?
Ooh, I think it's this summer.
Because, my
I was
friend
supposed.
Karen is coming supposedly September, October time from Australia.
Right.
So I'm also going to be in the city. But
Nice, nice.
I'm also planning one or two other trips to get down to the city to see some people. So keep me posted when you're headed down. Hopefully it'll be on a weekend and I'll know ahead of time where I can take off.
Definitely, of course.
Come and stomp around the boogie down.
Oh, definitely. There's a couple people, friends who have these local stores that I really want to go see. I know I was invited to Chicago. She wants me to. I can't remember her name. I lost her name. Nina something. But she wants me to go to Chicago for her witches event. So I'm still considering that. But definitely, I know I'm going to New York because there's a friend of mine on Facebook has opened a store, and I want to. I love to check people's businesses, and I love all that kind of stuff.
So who's the
Support them.
person and what's the name of the shop?
I'm sorry.
I said, so who's the person and what's the name of the shop?
Dominic has a shop. Dominic Guerrero. He's a friend of mine in New York, and he opened up a shop. And I'm dying to go check it out. Dominic's he's an awesome person, and so I'm like so excited that he opened that shop. Nina, she owns a shop in Chicago, and I'm so bad with people's shops names, but she invited me to a witches event, a witches ball in October, and she wants me to go because a lot of people in Chicago want to meet me. So I'm considering that as well. But that's in October. That's in late October. Then I have to be back for Salem Halloween because a lot of people come to Massachusetts because they think I live in Salem, which I don't. But I tend to be in Salem during that weekend or that week of Halloween and to meet people.
Got a lot going on. I'm happy to hear
yeah.
that. So before we wrap up, I just want to make mention because my friend Candelo Cambisa recently relocated to Texas, but I hear that it's 12 o'clock somewhere is coming back on Spreaker, one of the longest running shows, Candelo's Corner. So he'll be back. So keep an eye out on his Spreaker for It's 12 O'Clock Somewhere with Candelo Cambisa. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And so would you like to say our final goodbyes to our wonderful audience?
Well, everybody, thank you for participating and listening to the show. I'm excited. Michael deserves it. Michael's a great guy. I love this guy. Bottom of my heart, he's the one who got me, to do where I'm at right now. So this guy's amazing. He's a humble guy. Listen to his show.
Hey, you did it all. All I did was just open my mouth, and you did the rest.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back again next week, same time, 7 p.m., Thursday, Eastern, with some more talk about divination. And I'll be posting up some more information on the divinationtable.com, where you can go and check out our full lineup of guests coming up, as well as our contact page where you contact any one of our readers, any one of our special guests. It'll have all their information in there, so you will have a one-stop place to find all their info, as well as you can actually listen in archive to all of our shows directly from the website as well. So I will see you all again next week. Be blessed. Keep divining. Do what it is that you do and have faith, in what it is that you do and what your spirits tell you.
Exactly.
Till next week.